Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ahu Moser. I'm here today with Professor Diego Hernandez from Montgomery College. Professor Hernandez, welcome. And we thank you all for joining us. I know that we have participants this afternoon from near and afar. We have friends joining us from Peru, from Honduras, and we really thank you all for everyone's time. And I know that we have a couple of our instructors joining us from New York. So thank you so much. And then welcome to our virtual brown bag. If it is the first time for you to attend, we have been holding these virtual brown bags for a while. First, we held them for our teachers, but now it is open to public. And I am so happy that Professor Hernandez accepted to be here with us today to enlighten us with some information about his program and also other stuff. So before we start, I would like to introduce everyone to Professor Hernandez, and I have his bio, and then he has been teaching English as a second language at Montgomery College since 2008 at Tacoma Park and Silver Spring campus. And he also taught at SCMC's English program briefly in 2008. So, Professor Hernandez, would you like to add anything else? I hope I didn't miss anything else that you shared with me.
Hello. No, that's a brief, but I think decent professional bio for me.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So, Professor Hernandez and I were talking about our adult ESL learners, and he reached out to our program about his program at Montgomery College. And we were talking about what could be the reason that adult ESL students or our GED students, after they complete the adult ed programs, why are they not thinking about going into our local community colleges or other academic programs? And I think this is also where Professor Hernandez was thinking about some retention and enrollment issues also at Montgomery College. So Professor Hernandez, why do you think that there is that very little or no transition from the adult ed learners in ESL or GED to local community colleges? Are they scared, or do you think there are other reasons?
It's a great question, and honestly, it's hard for me to put myself in their shoes because my situation was I have not followed the same path myself, but I do have a lot of experience with the community college population, as you said. It's interesting because last night I was teaching and I mentioned the low enrollment that you already brought up to my students. It was related to something they were asking about, and I just kind of mentioned it casually. And one student said that she thought that people don't come to Montgomery College specifically because she said that they think we're too strong, which is not exactly the proper word there. And I kind of clarified things with her, and it turns out, at least for her, that the academic reputation of our institution is very rigorous, which I guess is kind of what you want, but apparently to her, she feels like it's a downside because it kind of scares people off. But so, which is what you said. But so what's at the root of that fear? I mean, I think that the population that we serve at Montgomery College is largely green card holding population. Some of them are new arrivals in the U.S., but many of them have been here for several years. And I think even if they have a degree from a university in their home country, they still have to get that another degree here, and they have the language barrier, which is not just a practical barrier but also an educational one, in that they have to go through English language training before. So the road is long. On top of that, you have a student population that must work, often full-time, usually full-time, I would even say. And so I don't know how many of us worked full-time while we were in school. I didn't have to do that, thank goodness. But I worked part-time and I thought that was bad. So, I can't imagine working full-time. And of course, some of them being older already have a family. So,
Mhm.
which is already a full-time job in itself.
Yeah.
So, I think, the cards are stacked against them in a lot of ways. And unfortunately for us, I think most of those circumstances are beyond our control. We can do our best to try to meet our students' needs in the ways that their needs will best be met given their situation, but there's only so far we can go.
Mhm.
And um, we can't, for example, give them a cash payment for the 40 hours a week that they work at their job. I mean, that would be great, right? I think a lot of students would like that, but that's not in the budget, unfortunately. So that's kind of a long-winded answer.
Mhm.
So basically, in a nutshell, a variety of circumstances, economic, social, but also maybe cultural at times as well.
Mhm. Thank you so much. But how about us as the teachers or as the tutors or volunteer educators or program administrators who are working in these adult ed programs? Um, I know that I can see the photos and names, and we have friends joining us from other Maryland counties in adult ed and such. So, how can we be allies to support our learners to be able to make that transition while there are challenges? And as you did say, any tips for us before you start your presentation?
You mean tips for me to you,
Yes,
or
the tips for teachers. How can we help the learners to think about the academic English or college? Any
um,
ideas with that?
I think, I mean, when I tell people that I work at a community college, the first thing that people say is like, "Oh, you must have such motivated students." And by and large, we do, and that is a wonderful work environment for me, and also a good learning environment for them.
Yes.
But motivation is not enough.
Yes.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I would imagine that you have a lot of people. As you mentioned, I did work in the Literacy Council English program for about 3 months in 2008, and I loved the students that I got to meet. It was a very diverse group. It was in one of the Germantown sites. Really, really interesting teaching experience, but the motivation is not enough, and I don't honestly don't know what practitioners at your level can do to kind of encourage more people to consider higher ed, because I think they know about it and they do consider it. I mean, I would maybe activities that show how much higher salaries are for people who have college degrees in certain fields in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
That could be something. That's something that I do in my in some of my classes
Mm-hmm.
here, and emphasizing. I think that especially at community colleges, I think one thing we're really good at is working with underprepared populations,
Mm-hmm.
and we have so many services. I mean, it's not just them with me in the classroom. There's a million other support services available, um, included in their tuition at no additional cost for them while they're students here. There's the writing center, there's counseling, there's academic coaching, things like that. There's a lot of support beyond just the professor student relationship. So I wonder sometimes if students don't know about that and
Mm-hmm.
think they might be completely on their own when they wouldn't really be, because we kind of have structured the education at the community college level in a way to, um, to catch them when they need to be caught. Is that
Thank you.
is that a helpful
Yeah,
answer? Did I?
it's very helpful. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think you have said it all, motivation, but and then also I think at the end when you did mention about the resources, maybe sometimes us we don't know what resources out there for our learners. Maybe we could kind of help our students to be aware of those things as well. So I don't have any questions for you now. Please go ahead with your presentation, and I will monitor the chat box. If there are any questions, then I will bring those questions to you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And Jeremiah is going to help you with your slides.
Great. Okay. All right. So I see the slides. So welcome, everyone. Thank you again for having me here. As Ahu explained, I contacted her a few weeks ago basically, I'm a professor, but this semester my dean has asked me to do some outreach in the community to try to increase our enrollment because, as she mentioned, it is quite low. And so I was very happy when she responded to my initial email, and I'm happy to find myself here today speaking to such a large group, diverse group of people. So thank you again. It's a real privilege to be able to speak with all of you. And as she explained, as you can see here on the slide, my name is Diego Hernandez. I'm the associate professor in ELAP. That stands for English Language for Academic Purposes at Montgomery College, and I work at the Tacoma Park Silver Spring campus. So please go ahead. Next slide, please, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you. All right. So in a nutshell, what is ELAP? I would imagine those of you who are located here in Montgomery County are certainly familiar with Montgomery College and may have even taught or be teaching currently in an ESL program here at Montgomery College. And we have several different ESL programs at Montgomery College, as I'm sure many of you know. We have 2 programs in workforce development and continuing education, the APPE and AELG programs. We have a wonderful section called the Refugee Training Center, which includes English classes for newly arrived refugees. And then we have the program that I teach in, which is the English Language for Academic Purposes program. I have not worked in any of the other programs, so I'm not going to attempt to explain exactly what all of those programs do. But what I can do is explain a little bit more about ELAP. And what makes ELAP different from those other programs is that we are what I'm going to call an academic preparation program. And if some of you who are practitioners have taught or are teaching in any university intensive English programs or IEPs, we are not an IEP or intensive English program, but we are the closest thing that you'll get to that at a community college. An intensive English program at a university, like for example at Georgetown University or University of Maryland, which are 2 of the programs that I have taught here locally in the past, those programs are primarily geared towards F1 student visa holders who come directly to the United States specifically to study in those programs. And those students are almost all full-time students. Those programs do prepare students for an academic level of English, and that's what we do. So we don't have a very large F1 student visa population, although they do exist in our program. And most of our students are part-time, not full-time, because as I mentioned in my earlier answers to the questions, that our students tend to need to work at least 20, 30 hours a week, if not 40, 50, 60 hours a week. So it's quite a different population, but I would say the goal is the same. The goal is to take someone who already has what I'll call an intermediate level of English, whatever that means, but is not a beginner, and to take their English to a level where they can satisfactorily and more easily complete academic work in a degree program here at Montgomery College. All right. So that's why we call it English Language for Academic Purposes. We used to be called the American English Language Program, or AELPs. Those of you who have been in the area for a long time or are more familiar with Montgomery College in the past, this is the same program as the AELP, or American English Language Program. But as you can see on my slide, the second bullet there, we redesigned in 2017. So we not only changed our name, we also completely redesigned our curriculum at that time. So while we are doing the same thing, we have completely new courses, new learning outcomes for each course, and a kind of a different trajectory that students go through than we did before. So yeah, so I'll just go through the rest of these kind of briefly. That we redesigned in 2017. Why did we redesign? Because we wanted to decrease the time to completion and cost to completion for students. That has been a priority for the college's administration for a long time, and so we responded to that by doing a redesign. Our program is suitable for full and part-time students. I mentioned that most of our students are part-time, but some students are full-time, and that's fine. And we've set it up so that students can attend our classes easily full-time or part-time, depending on their needs. And they can go full-time one semester, and then next semester work picks up, or you have to take a second job. They can cut down to part-time and keep studying 1 or 2 classes. It's easy to do that with our program. They don't earn credit for ELAP classes. So they spend money, they spend time, but they don't earn credit for the classes. So that's an important distinction to make. They are, however, enrolled students at Montgomery College. So they are able to do all of the same things and have all the same privileges that any other Montgomery College student has. They don't earn credit for the ELAP classes, but the next point, as you'll see on my slide, they can earn credit while they're in ELAP by taking other classes at the same time. All right, and I'll go into more detail about that later. I have some more examples to show you. Next, if they're eligible, they can use federal financial aid for ELAP classes. Earlier, I was asked what kinds of things adult education professionals like yourselves could tell students about community college. That's something I forgot to mention that I think is one of the best selling points of our program. I'm not an expert on financial aid, and I probably shouldn't talk about it too much. But in an intensive English program at a university like the ones that I had worked at before, students are not able to use financial aid to pay for those classes because they're non-credit. For some reason that I don't understand, because again, I'm not an expert, our students who are eligible for financial aid, which green card holders are, as I mentioned, we have a large green card holder population in our program, they can apply that federal financial aid if they're eligible for it to their English classes. So that can reduce or eliminate the cost of attendance for many students. Who comes to the ELAP program? So you're living in Montgomery County, you want to come to Montgomery College. How do you know if you need to come to ELAP or not? And that's the last bullet point here on the slide that you can see. Placement testing is for students with 10 years or less of school in the US. So we don't look at how long a student has, a prospective student has lived in the United States. We looked at, have they gone to school here for 10 years or less? So just some scenarios, right? So if you finished high school in Sierra Leone and then you immigrated here when you're 19 and you've lived here for 10 years, you will need to take an ESL placement test. All right. If you're 19 years old now and you arrived here when you were 15, right? Even if you graduated from Montgomery County Public Schools, most of those students will need to take a placement test when they arrive. All right. And just 2 little sub bullets there that you can see. The current placement testing that we have is emergency remote placement. We used to use a placement test called the AccuPlacer. I believe I'm not sure where you're using at the Literacy Council. When I was there, it was the CASAS assessment, which is common in adult ed. The AccuPlacer is a more academically oriented version of that. But we couldn't use it during COVID because they don't have a remote option. So we had to scramble. Our placement team, which I'm not involved with, they came up with a great emergency remote placement process that we've been using. All right. And that's going to continue until at least December. And then in December, they're going to reassess to see if we can start bringing people back in person to take the placement exam. So could I have the next slide, please? Thank you. All right, so what's going on with ELAP today? We've got wonderful professors like myself who love working with wonderful students. We've got wonderful motivated students. Unfortunately, we don't have very many of them, all right? Enrollment is quite low, and this is a trend for those of you who pay attention at community colleges. It's a trend across higher ed by and large, but it's particularly acute at the community college level in the United States. So community college enrollment has declined significantly throughout the pandemic and continues to do so. This is above my pay grade. Like I said, I'm not an administrator here, I'm a professor, but there are more important people than me at the college who are working very hard to try to figure this out. It's quite perplexing because the general rule of thumb for community college has always been when the economy gets worse, enrollment goes up at a community college because people take that opportunity when they lose their jobs or find themselves underemployed to leave work and then to get more training to enter a new field. For some reason, during the pandemic, that did not happen. It's not happening. So the economy has worsened, particularly in the beginning. A lot of people had their hours cut, but they didn't come to community college. And no one knows why. And unless you were alive during the 1910s, you don't have another pandemic to compare this to in terms of trying to figure out how to approach this. So it's a really honestly, disappointing and dismaying situation that we find ourselves in because we were so eager to serve the population of Montgomery County and to help people improve their educational credentials so they can move up the career ladder and get more lucrative and stable jobs with better working conditions. But if people don't come in the door, then it's very hard to do that. So my efforts here today are one small attempt to try and do a little bit more outreach with prospective students. And the bottom line is that wide swaths of Montgomery County's immigrant population are not being served. So here I am trying to reinvigorate the program as best we can. Could I have the next slide, please? Thanks. I'm not sure. I have a question. Is it small? Is the PowerPoint just small for me, or are you all able to maximize that? The people who are viewing this? I know what it says, but I want to make sure that other people can read it. Are audience members able to see that in bigger than I can? Sorry, it's my first time using this Shindig interface. It appears small for me. Thanks for the feedback. Okay, well, I'm not sure how to fix that. I guess I know that. Okay. All right, thank you for the feedback in the chat. I see that. All right, well, I hope that this will get sent to you by the Literacy Council people after, and then you can look at this chart. But I'll just describe. I'm not going to read the chart, but I can describe what it is. So this is a flow chart of our program, and I know you can't read it, but fortunately it's color coded, so I can refer to those colors, and that will be enough for the purposes. So basically, this flow chart, as you can see by the direction of the arrows, runs from top to bottom, and where you see the gray, purple, and green boxes, the first one that's kind of in the middle. On the left, that's the reading class. In the middle, that's the writing class, and in the right, that's the speaking class. So when I said earlier that this program is optimized for both full and part-time students. I'm seeing in the chat here that you can expand it by collapsing the viewers, and Joy is saying that she was able to maximize. Okay, great. Thank you, Ahu. Thanks for the note. Okay. Anyway, so on the left side, the gray side is reading, middle is writing, purple, green on the right is speaking and listening. So if a student is full-time, they will take all three of those classes at the same time. All right. And these classes, again, this is written on here, but you can't see it if it's too small for you. It says they're each 5 credits, right? Which means they meet 5 hours a week. All right. So 15 hours a week is a full-time in the United States, considered a full-time load for a college student, not just community college. Not every student can attend class 15 hours a week. So in that case, they would just choose 1 or 2 of these classes to take as their schedule permitted. All right. So they might need reading, writing, and speaking, but they might just take reading and speaking together one semester and then save the writing for another semester. Right. Unlike F1 visa holders, student visa holders who are required to be full-time students, green card holders have no such requirement as permanent residents. So that's why we've structured the program this way, catering to our population, so that if they want to take full-time classes, they can. But if they can only have room in their lives for 1 class, then they can just do 1 or 2. Obviously, the disadvantage of that is that it will take them much longer to finish if they only take 1 or 2 classes at a time. It will take them more semesters, but that's in the there's nothing we can do about it category of concerns, unfortunately. So the middle row is the lower intermediate level. And then under that, again, I know you can't see this, but there's some 9A. It looks like some people have been able to maximize the chart. I'll be done with the chart in a minute, so don't worry about it if you can't figure out how to maximize it for them. That's fine. Thank you. So then they move up into another level, and then at the bottom where you see all of the arrows kind of coming towards one point, and there's one light purple class in the middle, that is what we call our capstone class. And at that point, they're just taking one class, and it's an integrated skills class that has reading, writing, listening, and speaking all together in one class. All right. So they'll take, 5, 5, 5 or 15 credits in the first level, 5, 5, 5 or 15 credits in the second level. And then the last class, the ELAI 990, which is the bottom there, bottom light purple one, they'll take just 6 credits at the time. All right. And after that, then they can take English 101. They can take any classes. There are no longer any restrictions on what they can enroll in. All right. Not all students, we do have a placement process, as I already explained. Not all students start at the first level. Some of them come in at the highest level and just need 1 semester, and then they exit the program. And some students need, whose English is not as well developed yet, they need to start at the lower level and work their way through a program. And that's, a common theme to many programs. All right. So I'm all set with that. So go ahead and give me the next slide, please, if you can. Great, thank you. All right, so what do we offer students, right? And this is really, I think, for me, the centerpiece of this presentation is what are our selling points? Why would someone who's got 3 kids at home, works full time, why would that person add another thing to their to their full plate and enter Montgomery College? And specifically, even if they're taking, if they have to take English as a second language classes or the ELAP classes that I teach. And this is, I think, an important reminder for everyone of why we exist and how we can help students succeed. We offer English language support to Montgomery College students. If they place into our program, it's an indication that they would not be successful at regular academic classes yet because of their English. So we exist to provide them the support so we can get them to that starting point so they can go away and take their classes in their major and get their degrees. We also offer a very low tuition rate for academic preparation classes in English as a second language. In terms of college and university-based intensive English programs, the ones that I worked with are very, very expensive. And for Montgomery County residents, the Montgomery College tuition is not free, but it is quite affordable when you compare to a lot of other places. All right. It's also one of the only, if not the only, opportunities to use financial aid to pay for English as a second language. I mentioned that earlier, right? I wonder sometimes if people out there who are not here know that they can use financial aid for the English classes. So that's a really important thing for prospective students to understand. If they're worried about money, maybe they would qualify for some aid that would help defray the cost of their expenses. It's also a way to avoid some standardized testing, quite frankly. If students enter our program and then finish their associate's degree at Montgomery College, they'll then be ready to they can just end their education there if that's what suits them, or they can transfer to another college or university and continue and get a bachelor's degree. They won't need to take the TOEFL or IELTS tests to enter those colleges because they'll already have a degree from an American college or university. And I know that standardized testing is something that holds a lot of people back. So that's an important point to make. Finally, and it's a good opportunity to earn credit at the same time as ELAP classes, and I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. Like I said, they don't earn credit for the classes themselves, the ones that I teach, but they can take credit classes alongside our program at the same time, and they will earn credit for those classes. So when they exit our program, it's not quote unquote wasted time, but rather they have already managed to start earning some credits towards either the general education requirements at Montgomery College or their major or both. All right, next slide, please. Great. Thank you. So this slide has a lot of text. I'm not going to read it all, but I'll just summarize what it says. So again, there's the 970 and 980 levels. So we have 3 levels, 970, 980, and 990. Where the numbers come from, don't ask me because I wasn't in charge of that. It's a good question. The 970 is the entry level, and then intermediate is 980, and then the advanced is 990, right? So in the lower two levels, which is what this slide is referring to, they can take, as it says here, if you look at the first bullet point, they can take any Montgomery College class that doesn't have a minimum assessment level. And there are literally, 50 or 60 classes at Montgomery College that don't require a minimum assessment. And by minimum assessment, I mean you don't have to be college ready or at the English 101 level. You don't have to have completed the ELAP classes yet in order to take these classes. And I've listed 3 examples of those classes. There's Introduction to Drawing, Introduction to Music Theory, Spanish, any of the foreign languages, right? So why would a student who's getting a nursing degree take Introduction to Drawing or Music Theory or Spanish? Well, because if you're a nursing major at Montgomery College, most of your classes will be in the health sciences, as they should be. But you also need to take one arts class and one, I think it's called humanities. I don't have the right term right now, but those terms are required. Those classes are required. So you get them out of the way at the same time that you're taking the ELAB classes. And then when you actually enter the nursing program and you're really taking those difficult health sciences classes, you don't have to worry about satisfying some of the other general education requirements. Next slide, please. Great, thank you. And this slide refers to ELAI 990, which is that capstone course at the bottom of the chart. That's the last one before they can enter English 101 and take any class at all at Montgomery College without any restrictions. And once they get to that level, they can take many, many other classes at the same time, all right? And this is a list of all the classes that they can take. I know that for those of you who don't teach at Montgomery College, you may not know what these prefixes mean. Some of them you can obviously figure out. BIOL is biology, CHEM is chemistry. We've got engineering here. CMAP is computer application, psychology. BSAD is business administration. Education, CMSC is computer science, and any math class. So there are quite a few credit options available to them once they get to the ELAI 990 level. So if you take ELAI 9, well, I'll save that for a moment. Next slide, please. I'll wait until I get to the next place to say that, right? You can skip that slide. I'll go right to the next one, please. Thank you very much. All right. Appreciate the help with the slides. So this is a scenario, and if this is a little hard to read, I apologize. I am not a graphic design person, and I am working with a graphic designer right now to kind of turn parts of this presentation into some prettier, easier to read marketing materials that I can distribute to organizations like yourselves and around here at the college. I do not have those materials ready yet. So that's coming. So for now, what you get is a simple bulleted list, which is where I top out in terms of my graphic design capability. So this is just a scenario of what does this look like taking classes at the same time, right? So semester 1, right? The student takes the writing class, the ELAW, W for writing, ELAR, R for reading, ELAS, S for speaking, and then they also add Spanish 101 at the same time. So they're taking, as you see at the top, they're taking 18 hours, which is a pretty decent load, but if you're able to go full time, that's something that's possible. And they're not earning credits for every class because they don't earn for the 3 ELAB classes, but they do earn 3 credits for Spanish, all right? Then the next semester, they take more ELAB classes than they take music, right? And then in the 3rd semester, they take ELAI 990 and they take 2 classes at the same time. They take Math 150 and Psychology 102, earning credits for all of this. So by the time they exit the program, they've spent 3 semesters and they've earned 12 credits, which is not that much for 3 semesters of college, but it's certainly better than nothing. And they've already satisfied some of the requirements for their degrees and for general education at the college. So when they're open, when the college is now open to them in terms of enrolling in any class, they don't have to worry about fitting in an arts class or a math class if that's not their thing, because they've already gotten them out of the way. Could I have the next slide, please? Thanks. This is a different scenario for a part-time student who can't take 18 hours a semester, all right? So this is just kind of another example of how you can earn credits at the same time. Next slide, please. All right. So what is going on in the future? All right. I'm wrapping up here and getting ready for questions. And I see there are some questions in the chat that I haven't had a chance to read yet, but I'll get to those once I'm done. I'm trying to here. So what am I trying to do here? I'm trying to bill our program here to communities like yours as an indispensable tool for English language learners at Montgomery College that offers options for credit classes at every level. All right. So I'm really trying to dispel the notion that the English as a second language program here, the ELAP program, holds people back or wastes their time, because I know that it doesn't do that. And I hope I've managed to demonstrate that to you in some small ways. I'm also open to the possibilities of collaboration between the Literacy Council and ELAP. I put one little bullet in there. ELAP representatives visit upper level classes of yours to answer student questions about programs. I don't know if that's appropriate. I don't know if there's time for that, and I don't know how that would look. This is just me brainstorming. But I would love to, one of the things I'm trying to do this semester as I do outreach like this to communities outside Montgomery College is I'd really like to figure out how can we kind of establish a partnership so that, for example, when you who are in the classroom in the Literacy Council get questions, or maybe a student comes up to you and asks you, I want to be a dentist, how do I do that? Or I want to be a nurse, how do I do that? Then even if you don't have the information yourself, then you know kind of where to send them, where they can look for that information to contacts here in our department. And with that, I will end my presentation and open the floor for any questions that people might have. I see someone here, F Ortiz, has a question. As teachers, we can support, I'm looking in the chat here, we can support adult learners boost their confidence. Many students might lack confidence. Certainly, that's what I heard from my student last night that I mentioned, that said our program was too strong. For example, changing their negative cognition to positive cognition from I can't succeed to I can succeed this program. What are your thoughts on how to support students to boost their confidence to enter an adult learning program or community college? What are your thoughts on how to support students to boost their confidence in the classroom environment? I mean, these are great questions. And even though I'm talking to you now because we are suffering from low enrollment right now and I'm trying to increase it, I can tell you that these issues are not just for students that aren't here, that don't think that college is for them. They persist in students who manage to make their way into our classes. And a lot of our job as community college faculty is to convince them that they're welcome here and show them how all of this is for them. It's not for somebody else who's fancier or richer or whatever, or has a higher socioeconomic level. It's for everyone, including them. But that's easier said than done. Let me answer your questions more specifically. I'm looking again. It says their negative cognition to positive, from I can't succeed to I can succeed in this program. I mean, what we at Montgomery College lately, in my discussions with colleagues and in attending professional development sessions here and outside the college, something that has come to my attention recently is the idea of an asset model of education versus a deficit model. This is not exactly related to the question, but it is there's some similarities there. So I want to take the opportunity to talk about that. And I'm sure some of you are familiar with this. It's relatively new for me in the last maybe year or two. But an asset model emphasizes what the students already know and bring to the table in the educational process. And a deficit model, which is the opposite of that, obviously, operates from a standpoint of like, well, you're the student, you don't know anything. So we're going to give you knowledge and help you achieve a level of knowledge that is going to help you be successful. And certainly students don't know everything. I mean, we don't know things when we're going through educational processes. But something that I do in my classes, and something that I think a lot of us here in the department are trying to do, are emphasize what students bring to the table already in terms of their cultural experience back home, their time here in the US. What do they already know? And to emphasize that to them, I think, is a great way to boost confidence. All right. Um, let's see. The other part of the question, to support students to boost their confidence to enter an adult learning program or a community college. I mean, I think, I think honestly, like sometimes sometimes when students when I hear of people who are hesitant to enter community college, it's often people who are working at Starbucks or Whole Foods or CVS, which, you know, those are perfectly fine jobs, and I think it's great that people work there, but the working conditions and the salaries make life in an expensive area like Montgomery County a real struggle. The minimum wage in Montgomery County is going up in January to $15 an hour, which, you know, for those of us who are a little older, sounds like a lot of money compared to the money that we earned in minimum wage in high school. But it's still not enough. It's barely enough to make ends meet, particularly if you only have one working spouse and you have children. It's almost impossible to do that. So sometimes I mean, I certainly would never say this to students, but, you know, I don't understand why people don't come, because for me, the idea of working a minimum wage job and trying to support a family is just mind-boggling. I mean, it sounds like such a struggle. So that alone, I think, should be a great motivation to push them to go a little bit outside their comfort zone and to at least seek more information about the community college. But the fact remains that that's not enough, and quite frankly, I don't know why that's not enough, because it certainly would be enough for me. But again, I haven't followed exactly their path, so it's hard for me to put myself exactly in their shoes. I see another question from Mary. Are you offering both online and in-person classes in the ELAP program? Yes. So you don't know this because you don't know me, but I'm in my office on the Tacoma Park campus. I am teaching on campus full-time, 5 days a week this semester. Right now at Montgomery College, we are offering, I think the statistic is maybe 10% of our classes are on campus and the rest are online. The goal for spring semester, which is starting on January 27th, is that the date from last year? Anyway, late January, let's call it that. The goal is to have 70% of classes on campus and 30% of classes online. That is a goal. Like I mentioned before, enrollment is down. So right now what's happening is the sections are open for people to enroll, but if it gets to be close to January and most of the in-person sections have not filled, then they will probably cancel those classes and maybe add more online classes. So there is that kind of flexibility available. So anyway, the short answer to your question is yes, we're offering both online and in-person classes in the ELAP program, but the goal is in the spring to move even more of them on campus, but not to eliminate the online option. I think that's going to keep going for a very long time because you know, a lot of students prefer that, particularly busy students who don't have time to commute. For those of us who live in the area, we know how bad traffic can be, right? How many students do you typically have in a class? Our classes are capped pretty small. They're capped at 20, but right now I have one class with 3 students and one class with 7 students. Again, enrollment is quite low. So this is a great time for a student who needs a lot of extra attention from their professor to consider enrolling in English classes because I have the ability to give them so much more time and attention than I would if all of my classes were full. My student talked with someone at MC and thinks the minimum commitment is 3 hours a day. Is that correct? This is the kind of stuff that I love to hear about because I don't know what people are like. We don't know what people who aren't here at MC are saying about us. All right. We only know the people who have managed to come and enroll. Right. Minimum commitment is 3 hours a day. No, that is not true. All right. Number one, there is no minimum commitment. I mean, I guess the minimum commitment is taking one class, right? But classes can happen once a week for 5 hours. They can happen twice a week for 2.5 hours each time, or they can happen 3 times a week for 1.5 hours or so each time. So it would be incorrect to say that the minimum commitment for all MC students is 3 hours a day. All right. Do you have a liaison who could help students whose goals are to further their education? Well, this semester I am volunteering myself as that liaison, and that's part of the reason I wanted to come and speak with you today, and I'm very thankful for that opportunity. Not to get into the nuts and bolts of my employment too much, but this is just a one semester assignment for me. I won't be working on this type of outreach in the spring anymore. And I don't know at this time if my dean is going to hand this off to somebody else who will take over where I leave off, or if this is sort of maybe just a one semester thing. I'm not sure about that. And I won't know that for some time, probably until mid-December or so at least. But for now, right, if you all are teaching classes now, or if I'm not sure what your schedule is, if you've just wrapped up a session or when things end, if you have someone who has questions now, please give them my email address and have them get in touch with me, and I'd be happy to speak with literally any prospective student, in any people who are ready to enroll and don't know where to go, to people who have heard that they need to be here 3 hours a day, to people who don't even know that Montgomery College exists and want to know more about it, and any of those things. I'm the person right now that is designated to speak with those people, specifically people like the students that in your program who benefit from English language support. I don't see other questions in the chat right now. So are there any more? Are people able to raise their hands or speak? Or if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer. This has
I
been great.
cannot see any other questions, Professor Hernandez, but you did mention in your presentation, if I may ask, having a representative or yourself joining the classes to talk about the program. I think it would be great. So we have
Oh,
some
great.
classes ending before the Thanksgiving, but we are also going to have some classes after the Thanksgiving, and we have some also groups that are higher advanced ESL class or pre-GED and GED classes. I am sure that your expertise would be really appreciated. So
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, particularly the pre-GD students. I mean, because as well, I guess it's worth mentioning since we have people from all around the world here, right? But the minimum requirement to enroll at a community college is a high school degree. It doesn't have to be an American high school degree. It can be from any country, but of course GED is a substitute for that. So those students, I imagine some of them are looking forward to entering community college upon obtaining their GED. So I'd be delighted to speak with them. Yeah. And I mean, how would that look? Like, I don't know, we'd have to figure out availability and schedule and all of that, but I'd also be happy to record a YouTube video of 5 minutes that people could play. That's obviously easier to coordinate, but I'd also be happy to actually, come into your Zooms and speak for, 5-10 minutes at the end. I know that kind of personal contact is really helpful for a lot of students. We already have a website. We already have, social media and all of that. That's not working, clearly. So my goal is to try to make more of a personal connection with these populations.
yeah, so any of them would be great, even a video, or for you personally joining in our classes. I would be more than happy to coordinate with you. So no problem.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, before we let you go, how about, you did teach at SCMC in 2008, as you did mention, and
Right.
when we do our instruction, we really focus on 4 skills, the listening and speaking, writing, and, reading. For some of us who have advanced level students, I'm not asking, the whole idea, but what what general things that the students learn at the ELAP program, like a curriculum wise? So how can we let our students know before you come and join, oh, these are the challenging things or new things that you will learn, just to pique their attention? So
It's a great question. So the profile, I mean, we're considered one of the most diverse community colleges in the United States, which is a wonderful place, makes it a wonderful place to work. The general profile, so I'm making a generalization that, take it with a grain of salt, but the general profile of the ELAP student in my teaching here since 2008 is somebody with really, really highly developed listening and speaking skills, but whose reading and writing skills are not highly developed, right? So let's think about this, right? So you're from Cameroon, and I'm picking these countries because we have a lot of students from these countries, right? So you're from Cameroon and you're working at CVS, right? You are, I mean, there's no better way to learn English than to learn a language than to work in a customer service job in the country that you're living in, right? Because you're speaking English with your coworkers and with the customers constantly, right? So, but you're not using a lot of reading and writing skills, certainly not academic, in that job day to day, right? So what we get is students who often sound, particularly the younger ones who've gone to high school here, they sound, they use slang very well. They make very few errors when they speak. And I don't have to speak more slowly or repeat myself very often with them. But then if you look at their writing and reading, it is not up to where their speaking is. So we often see a gap there. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I think there is one more question from Vince, and he's
There is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so thanks, Vince, for your question. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. So as Vince says, so the minimum grade to attend the ELAP program is grade 12 or GED. The short answer is yes, but I do want to add something to your question, Vince, just to make sure everything's clear. The ELAP program does not have separate requirements from Montgomery College. The way to enroll in the ELAP program is to register as a Montgomery College student and then take the placement process and then enroll in ELAP classes. But it's not at all a segregated program that has different requirements from Montgomery College. And I think that the reason I want to clarify that is because this is a selling point. Like, at a lot of colleges and universities, if you take the intensive English classes, you then are not guaranteed admission to their undergraduate programs. And you then have to apply. And often when I taught at Maryland, the University of Maryland, students would come to Maryland, they'd finish our intensive English program, they wouldn't get into the University of Maryland, and then they'd have to go somewhere else and move somewhere else in the United States to continue their education. They are guaranteed to be able to continue at Montgomery College at the same institution when they're in the ELAP program. So it's not that the ELAP program has a minimum grade of grade 12 or GED. That is just community college. That's Montgomery College's minimum requirement. But yes, you need to have a high school diploma from any country or a GED. Those are the requirements.
This is great. Professor Hernandez, would that be okay if I shared your email address with the participants today?
Please. Yes, I don't have an email list of everyone here, so I would ask you in your team, please feel free to share my PowerPoint so you could see some of the stuff that I kind of glossed over a little bit more detail. And then also please share my email address. Anyone here is welcome to send me an email themselves. You're not bothering me. This is literally part of my job. So I'm very, very eager to interact with you and to provide support where I can. And also, an extension of that, please feel free to share my email with any of your current students that you have. And I understand the program's finishing up before Thanksgiving, but that you're going to have more classes after. So I don't know if that's the same cohort or what, but please feel free to share my email with anybody. And I know some people, I know the email culture varies around the world, and a lot of people who come here are not so familiar with email, but that's the best way to get in touch with me. I'm not quite prepared to give out my cell phone number to a large group of people, but email seems more manageable. And if they want to talk on the phone, then they can send me their number and I'll call them if that's better for them.
I see one more question from Eileen.
Yes. Just wanted to verify that financial aid is available for ELAP courses. So remember what I said when I talked about financial aid. Take everything I say about financial aid with a grain of salt because I'm not an expert. And when I say that, I just don't want to overpromise. All right. The message is not ELAP courses are free for everyone. That is absolutely not true. Okay. And I know that's not what you're saying, Eileen, but I just want to make sure that that's clear. Right. Federal financial aid is a really complicated thing. Rules get rewritten all the time, changes from president to president. Things changed when we got Biden in office. Things will change again when he's no longer a president. So that's why we have a financial aid office that keeps up to date with all that to make sure that we're in compliance and our students are getting the financial aid they need. But yes, financial aid is, students who are eligible for financial aid can use it to pay for their ELAP classes at Montgomery College. I know that because my students talk about financial aid all the time.
Maybe we could communicate with a staff member at MC who does the financial aid applications also regarding ELAP, and then maybe we could,
Yeah, that would be the best person for that would be, the best office for that is something called Raptor Central.
Okay.
I'm typing it in the chat now, and you can just Google Raptor Central and you'll find it. And that is kind of the welcome center for college, the college for new students. And so a new student can, if you have questions about the ELAP classes, you should talk to me, right? But if you have questions about how to actually enroll, how does financial aid work, start there, and then they'll get you to the right person, right? But essentially, you'll have to fill out, students have to fill out a FAFSA, free application for federal student aid, the same thing that many of us filled out when we were college students, right? And they'll have to, you know, apply, you know, have to tax statements, you know, it depends on your parents' income, it depends on your income, it's the whole thing. And that's why I don't want to speak to the details.
That's fair enough. So yeah, very helpful. Thank you so much. I don't see any other questions, but if I do have any questions after our presentation is over, I will make sure to forward them your way. And thank you so much for your time, for your expertise. You know, I'm very grateful that you took your time.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm so glad this worked out, and I have such great memories of teaching that 3 months in the Literacy Council program way back at elementary school in Germantown that I can't remember the name of, but right now, but it was great. And I'm so happy to see that the program has flourished in the years since I've lost touch with it. It's great to see. It was a wonderful experience. And I know that you all are really doing a great job helping a lot of students.
Thank you so much. And also thanks for what you do for our students as well in a higher level. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. All right. Thank you very much. And nice to meet you all. And I hope to hear from some of you soon.
Yes.